Hey there, miniature painters. Today we take a step back in time to explore one of the most tried and true methods for speed painting miniatures. Now, this is not a better than Slapchop video. We're simply taking a look at an effective alternative to Slapchop that uses the standard acrylic paints that you already own. My goal here is to share a few key tips and tricks that will maximize the efficiency of this process to make your speed painting sessions faster and more enjoyable. Welcome to Trehane Miniatures. If you're new to this channel, then I should point out that this is not a speed painting focused channel. I have dabbled in Slapchop, demonstrating how to create your own speed paint colors, for example, but it's not a style of painting that I typically engage in. However, one approach to painting that I truly despise is batch painting. So when presented with a whole slew of models to paint, I do not hesitate to break out any and all speed painting tricks. The first step here is model preparation, which entails using a hot glue gun to stick the models to the top of a deck screw or nail. The deck screw or nail will serve as your painting handle, as well as acting as an easy way to set the models aside while you're painting this long line of miniatures. Either of these handles can be used to stand the models upright in the top of a small cardboard box, but I prefer the deck screw for its efficiency and versatility. Because I use a single sheet of cardboard as the base of my painting surface, I can set these miniatures down anywhere on my painting table with a quick half turn of the deck screw. The bite of the deck screw also allows me to invert the miniatures while priming without fear of them falling out of the cardboard box that they're stuck in. Now, I'm sure you're all aware of how to use blue tack to stick models to a thin stick for priming. However, I would not recommend that method here, simply because you would have to glue them to a nail or screw later anyway. The deck screw handle is a critical component of this process, as you'll see later in the video. Skipping this step will create a significant challenge for you down the road. When priming the miniature, I choose a primer color that will also act as the base layer for one of the major colors found on the model. For this miniature, I'm choosing Rust-Oleum Light Tan Camouflage Paint. This will be the skin color for the zombie horde, which means that I will not have to paint any of the skin on these miniatures later on. Looking at the game art for these minions, we can see that other than the flesh, there are only three main colors for this piece: a dark red, a light khaki, and a dark gray. I feel that it's important to severely limit my color palette when speed painting, so I will limit myself to just these three basic colors when painting auxiliary parts of the model, such as the ropes around the character's chest and waist, and the axe. Beginning with the largest component found on these models, I use Army Green by the Army Painter to paint all of the shirts. I'm using a rather large brush, which is a size 3, and applying the paint with broad strokes. This is not going to be one of those painting to a high standard speed painting videos, nor am I going to secretly refine my work off camera. This is true speed painting. The paint is going on quick, any errant brush strokes will not be corrected, and you'll see my finished work with all of its imperfections. The goal for this type of batch painting is for all of these minions to look great as part of a horde. We'll save our more involved painting efforts for hero characters and the big baddies. Using Basilisk Red, I move on to the next largest component of the piece, which is the hood and pants. I'm painting a single color everywhere that it appears on each miniature across all models before moving on to the next color. I found this to be the most efficient way to batch paint a dozen or more miniatures. About halfway through this gaggle of minis, I switched to using Wyvern Fury for the hood and pants. Then I compare the two colors. I decide to proceed with the Wyvern Fury for the rest of the models, since it's a slightly lighter red and these reds will be darkened later. I'm going to go against the current hype train and say that the actual colors in this Warpaint Fanatic line just aren't doing it for me. They all appear to be greatly desaturated versions of the original Warpaint colors. They do absolutely have much better opacity than the original Army Painter line. It's almost like the Army Painter just took their original paint line and added grays to them to increase the opacity, which also has the side effect of greatly desaturating them. They're fine colors if you're looking for that pastel appearance in your paint colors, but I much prefer the colors found in the original Army Painter line. That being said, there's no way I could use the original Army Painter colors for speed painting like this. They would require several coats to get complete coverage, whereas these Fanatic paints achieve complete coverage with a single coat. So I guess this is a case of choosing the right tool for the job. Now I hit everything that's left on the model with some good old-fashioned Necromancer cloak. This finishes off all of the accessory items like the belts, bags, shoes, hair, and axe. And that's all there is for the painting portion of this project. This next step is where the magic happens, and this is where you'll see the critical importance of having your minis mounted to a deck screw or nail. We're going to dip our miniatures in some Minwax Antique Walnut Polyshade. It's important to use the gloss finish for this. I've tried just about every brand and finish, and I find the gloss Polyshade to be the best. This is basically the exact same process as using the Army Painter dip wash, but at literally half the cost. The screws are necessary because we're going to insert this thin little post into an electric drill for the dipping process. Now, normally this dipping process can be quite labor intensive, requiring you to tend to your minis for a period of time, periodically mopping up any pooling that occurs on the miniature. But with the drill and the magic of centrifugal force, this is a fast process that eliminates the need for any further maintenance. After dipping the miniature in the wash, I move it over to a cup or other similar container and give it a spin. The centrifugal force of the spin will remove the excess wash and completely eliminate the need to clean up any pooling later on. The container will contain the dip without slinging it all over the place. A white container works best because what I'm actually doing here is watching the flecks of dip as they land on the walls of the container. Once I no longer see new drops appear, I know I'm done. It's a one and done step and your miniatures come out looking great. Of course, you can alternatively use any regular acrylic wash for this, such as Agrax Earthshade. It'll just take a little longer to complete. This dip produces an incredibly durable, albeit shiny finish. Before we continue with any additional paint or effects, we'll have to use some matte varnish to take care of that shiny finish. Please don't try to cheat this process by using a matte or satin poly shade. These finishes will stain the color of your base layer much more than the gloss finish will. With the matte finish applied, the miniature is tabletop ready. But we can do a little more with some quick little highlights before calling this done. For true speed painting highlights, I use a single very light color over the entirety of the miniature. In this case, I'm using Necrotic Flesh by the Army Painter. I'm trying two different approaches for these highlights. First, I use a dry brush for the highlights. I lightly load the dry brush and aggressively work the paint into the brush using my favorite dry brush palette. This allows me to really attack the miniature with the brush without having to be too careful. Only the raised edges of the miniature are going to pick the paint up off this brush. After this, I try using a lightly loaded standard paintbrush with a lighter touch. I slide the side of the brush over the raised surfaces that need to be highlighted. This requires more care with the placement of the highlights, but the highlights come out cleaner and this method is actually faster than dry brushing. This is also the ideal time to add any effects that you want on the miniature. So what do you think? Do you have any interest at all in using this old school speed painting method as an alternative to Slapchop? Personally, I like it because it uses standard acrylic paints instead of contrast style paints, but I definitely only use this method for batch painting. If you prefer Slapchop style speed painting and would like to learn how to make your own homebrewed speed paint colors, then check out this video here. If you would like to see a speed painting video using store-bought speed paints, then check out this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to join our growing community of painters.